This week, I'm answering a question from Boris about buying a distressed business. Stay tuned.
I'm David C. Barnett, and you're tuned in to Small Business and Deal Making, the podcast, YouTube channel, and blog where I talk about buying, selling, financing, and managing small and medium sized businesses while controlling risk. So, if you're looking to take control of your future through buying a business one day, or if you already own a business and you're looking to grow or exit, you've come to the right place. I talk about interesting things, I talk to interesting people, and I answer your questions every week right here. So, be sure to hit like and be sure to hit subscribe, and let's get to it.
Hey, everyone, it's David Barnett. I want to read a question that Boris left. And he asks, and so he was watching a video that I had made quite a while ago called Good Deals on Distressed Businesses, Buying Distressed Businesses, and How to Buy a Small Business. And Boris asks, please, can you do another one about buying a business that is distressed and is having huge debts? How can the deal be done? Is it doable? Great question, Boris. So, what I did is I thought about this for a little bit, and I've kind of divided distressed businesses into three different categories here for the purpose of illustration here today. So, the first category are businesses that don't make money on an operating basis, which means they've got a bunch of equipment, machinery, inventory, whatever they've invested in, and they're serving customers. But at the end of the day, there's no profit. And we can use several measures of profitability when we look at small businesses. So we could say that the owner is working in the business and not even taking a paycheck, and the business is just barely surviving. And that would be one person's definition of, you know, not making money on an operating basis. My definition of not making money on an operating basis is if you can't also pull out a salary for yourself as the owner operator working full time for what that management position would normally be paid if you're working for someone else. So I kind of hold small businesses to a bit of a higher standard. Now, for that kind of business, I made a video a couple months ago called What If It's Worth the Equipment, which dives more deeply into that video. Maybe we'll put a link floating here on the screen. So that's if it's not making money on an operating basis. Now, what if it is making money on an operating basis? So we're making a profit in the business, we're able to take a salary. There is a profit over and above the salary of the owner. We'll call that EBITDA, earnings before taxes, interest, depreciation, and amortization. And but here's the question: is EBITDA is literally earnings before interest, finance charges, right? So what if it's making money on an operating basis, but um, there's too much debt? So let's say that the business has an an enterprise value of $500,000. This is what the cash flow would be worth, but there's debts of $700,000, right? So what do you do if the thing's only worth 500, but there's debts of 700? The answer is, if that business is going to be sold, either the current owner, if they're able to service those debts, they either have to fix the business and grow the cash flow to make it worth more than what is owed so they can sell it. Believe me, they probably tried that, right? So there's some other issue that's preventing them from doing that. Or if you're going to buy that business, you have to make sure that none of those debts somehow find their way over to you. I mean, assuming some of those debts may be part of your acquisition strategy, right? So that is totally an option. But you don't want to take over $700,000 worth of debt for a business that's worth 500,000. That wouldn't make sense for you. So what's going to happen to some of that debt if you're able to negotiate an agreement with that seller to buy that business? Someone somewhere is going to have to take a loss. And that would be either a lender writing down the amount of debt that they have, agreeing to accept less for the business to be sold, or the seller is going to have to sell you the assets of the business. You're going to have to make sure that there's no liens or claims of some of those creditors that are going to follow those assets. So you certainly want to make sure you have good legal advice in doing that transaction to make sure that any uh, liens like UCC filings in the States or any PPSA registered liens in Canada, for example, have been removed in the sale of those assets. And so sometimes in that kind of arrangement, the creditor may be a party to the negotiation. So the seller says, look, I'm not making money here. I've lost money. I want out. Mr. Creditor, if you want to get some money for what I owe you, then you're going to have to sign off on this sale. And I described that in a video that I made back in 2020, where I interviewed a gentleman named Kenny Butler. And it's called Remove Burdensome Debt When Buying a Business. And we'll put a link to that one here. So someone's going to have to take a bath. And it's either the creditors are going to have to agree to less, which means that they're probably going to put something on the credit report of the seller because that would be a negotiated settlement, right? So that would be bad for their credit score. Or at least the secured creditors who might have a lien against the assets of the business, you may buy that business, those creditors may be paid off, but then probably some of the other debts that the business owner has, maybe unsecured credit cards, line of credits, that kind of thing. And they'll have to deal with that on their own, and it may result in them filing a bankruptcy or something like that. And so tough conversations, right? Because the person already knows that they're in trouble. Some people have the mistaken belief, if I can't figure out how to make this business work, I'll just sell it, right? And then they come out into the market looking to sell it, and they realize that this asset they believe they owned may have some value. It might be earning money, as I said, on an operating basis, but it's not worth enough to cover off the debts that are there. And you know, buying a business like this, of course, in the world of small business, you'd be doing this as an asset purchase. Um, these kinds of transactions do get done in the world of big business, where somebody buys equity, which technically has a negative value, and then they try to work through and change the business in an effort to have it resurface, phoenix, regrowing out of its ashes, to try to be profitable. But the success rate of I was once on the website of a professional organization for turnaround people, and they're very proud of their success rate, which is something like 1 in 6 businesses are successfully turned around. Just to give you an idea, like it's tough to do this kind of thing. So that would be the second category of distressed, that there's simply more debt than the business is worth. Now, there's a third category of distressed businesses, and this is where the business's enterprise value, let's say again, maybe it's worth $500,000. They have debts that are less than that, but the debts are structured improperly so that the payments required to service the debts are more than the cash that is available out of the business. So in this case, we've got a business that is able to make money. The owner is able to draw a salary. There is an EBITDA level of profit beyond that, but the EBITDA is not enough to service the debts. And so they're continuously running out of cash, and they've probably have had to seek short-term credit solutions to try to put band-aids on their immediate problems. So this is when a business owner has an issue. They don't have access to properly structured debt. So they're not able to get a loan amortized over several years that they can afford to pay. So they're instead forced to do something like get a merchant cash advance. So they get an immediate infusion of cash, which solves their immediate problem. But now they've committed themselves to such high debt repayments that they can't get ahead. And they may not be able to service those debts, and they're falling further and further behind. They feel the pressure, but there still is something of value there. The business is, in this example, worth 500,000, but they can't service the debts because they're improperly capitalized or financed. So in this kind of situation, you could work out a deal. You wouldn't want to assume those debts because you would just be taking over the same problem that they had. But if you could, take a business that had, for example, these short-term loans, leases, merchant cash advances that were all at very high cost, or maybe the seller has a lot of debts financed on a credit card at 20 or 24% interest, for example, and you went and bought this business with a traditional bank loan or an SBA loan if you're in the United States and amortized it over 7 or 10 years, right? You would take the same amount of debt, push it over a long period of time, and you would more than comfortably be able to make those payments from the cash flow of the business. This is the sweet spot of distressed businesses. If you can find one like this, there are ample opportunities to figure out how you can do a deal the seller can end up selling for enough money to clear out their debts and they can walk away from it. And often businesses end up in a situation like this because the sellers just aren't good managers. So why couldn't they get access to the same kind of debt solution that you have? Well, they don't manage their money properly. They don't pay their bills on time. Maybe personally, they missed credit card payments, so their credit score is lower. There's all kinds of reasons why they weren't able to do the deal the way you could. Now, there are some people that go looking for businesses in this category who will do something like channel sponsor. Mark Willis over at Lake Growth talks about the bank on yourself life insurance, building an equity asset you can borrow against. There are people who will have access to hundreds of thousands of dollars in something like one of those life insurance policies, and they'll find a business like this and they'll just do a policy loan, write a check, buy the business, and then reorganize the financing of the business afterwards, right? So they'll use the fact that they've got ready access to lots of cash to honestly to lowball the seller like this, get as good a deal as they can, have a fast closing because there's no barrier, there's no delay from having to do a bank loan process. There's no bank due diligence involved. They can move as quickly as they want because they've got access to the money. So they use that spending power, that borrowing power to immediately do the deal. Then they'll worry about refinancing or capitalizing the business after they've got it under their control. Um, there is a way out for business owners that are in this situation who have ended up with all of these merchant cash advance debts, etc. Kenny Butler, who I mentioned earlier, his business Bardwell Creative, they actually have a program where they teach people how to basically present your distress and work out and negotiate your way out of some of those high interest, low amortization debts like merchant cash advance. And he gave me a link, which I'll put in the notes down below. It is an affiliate link. So if you click that and you do enroll in his program, I do end up getting a commission on that. But I've been through the program. It was one of the conditions for signing up. I said, I want to go through it. And I can tell you it's a good program. And what he teaches there is something that works. And it is a way out for someone who feels trapped by these high cost financing programs. But if you're a buyer and you run into someone in this situation who hasn't watched this video, then I'm telling you, this is the type of opportunity to look for. And I've had personal friends who have found deals like this where an owner's got a good profitable business. Maybe there's a few tweaks that need to be worked out. Like in the case of a restaurant, maybe they're not doing proper portion control. They're not pricing properly. They don't understand how to, make sure that they're achieving the gross margin that they think they are. So there's a few tweaks and problems, but the biggest part of the problem is short-term high-cost financing that is starving the business of cash. And so if you can find that kind of scenario, then there's definitely a way to make it work and to come out on top with a good offer that's going to help that seller get out of their tough spot and get you into a profitable business, hopefully that you're going to manage better than what the seller has. And with that, we'll say see you later. If you're interested in learning about how to buy a business, then head over to businessbuyeradvantage.com. It's where I explain all the different services that I offer to people who want to buy a business, consulting, and my online courses, chiefly Business Buyer Advantage, which is now grown to over 14 hours of online content. Hundreds of students have gone through there. Almost a 100% level of complete satisfaction amongst the students. I know that you'll enjoy it. I take people through the whole process from start to finish, and then there have been bonus modules added over the course of the last few years too that add on that. And so I'll say thank you very much. With that, I'll say see you later, and we'll head out with a message from Mark, our channel sponsor. Cheers. Special thanks go out to today's video sponsor, Mark Willis of Lake Growth Financial. Mark helps people better manage their personal wealth and business finances through the bank on yourself insurance strategy. This is something I've done personally and I've gotten lots of positive feedback from people I've worked with over the years. Go to newbankingsolution.com to find a playlist of all the interviews I've done with Mark
and to learn more about the advantages of these programs. While there, sign up to arrange a conversation about what this solution might look like for you. So, how can you learn more about buying, selling, financing, and managing small and medium sized businesses? Easy. Head over to my blog site at davidcbarnett.com. You'll find hundreds of articles and videos, all for free. You'll find links to my books and online courses, and you can sign up for my email list and get emails covering topics that interest you and be notified of new videos.